This is Saturday Morning Mysteries.
And we're your hosts, Alexis and Grace. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Saturday Morning Mysteries. I'm Alexis.
I'm Grace.
That's Grace, and we're back. We're here. We're back in action, and we're doing something new. We're doing a new show. So a lot of y'all who have been troopers sticking with us, watching this beautiful vodcast / listening to this awesome podcast, you know that we've been doing a lot of Scooby-Doo lately. I guess, 8 episodes of Scooby-Doo?
Yeah,
so we did a only Scooby-Doo, obviously not including our bonus content. But yeah, we've been doing a lot of Scooby-Doo analysis, and we love Scooby, so we're going to come back to that one day in the future. A lot of episodes there to talk about. But we decided, let's switch it up. Let's do a nice episode arc covering another great classic animated show that talks about crime and mysteries and investigations and action and adventure and just all the things. And yeah, I don't know if we should do like a drum roll moment. Although if you looked at the title of this podcast or video, then you probably already know. They already know. But we're gonna keep building up to it like it's suspenseful. Maybe like it's someone
a surprise.
Yeah, maybe this like auto played on someone's phone and they haven't had a chance to like actually look at the title yet. I don't know, but whatever. Fuck it. We're talking about Darkwing Duck, y'all.
Big reveal that you already knew.
Reveal, yes. Not a surprise for those who can read. Yeah, so we're going to talk about Darkwing Duck for the next several weeks here, or at least, the next few weeks. I think each of us are going to do at least a few episodes. And I guess, and Grace is going to do the first episode today, and she'll kind of give like a backdrop of setting the scene for the overall show.
Kind of.
But yeah, a little bit, maybe.
A little bit.
We'll see. We haven't gone too much in depth in each other's stories, so I don't actually know what all she's going to say. I'm speaking for her in the moment. But the show came out in the early 90s. It was a Disney show. I'm not gonna lie, I actually did not watch it that much growing up. It's like one of the, because we weren't a huge Disney family, but I would say if there was one Disney show that we did watch, this would be like the one probably. But even so, because it came out a couple years before I was born, so I only ever watched a few episodes in the background, kind of as my older brother was really watching them. But before we get into that, Grace, why don't you talk to us? Tell us, why were you so excited to, because this was her recommendation, by the way, Grace, it was Grace's idea that we talk about Darkwing Duck. So tell us, why is this show special to you? Why do we love Darkwing Duck?
Yeah. So for me, I similar to you, probably didn't watch it live. I was born the year after it came out. So I don't know, and my brother's only a year older than I am. So, like your brothers are a couple years older. And so, I don't think, while it was live on air, I was fully watching it, but I do have a special place in my heart for Darkwing Duck and DuckTales type shows, of which this is a spin-off kind of at least some characters in the universe-ish.
In Tailspin.
So specifically, when I was growing up, so this was then, later in the 90s, that we had, my brother and I had like the single best babysitter on the face of the earth, this woman, Vivian, who's like a super badass lawyer now. And she's an icon.
Badass lawyers are pretty cool.
Yeah, toss. I clearly gravitate towards them, Alexis. And she, every time she would come over when we were growing up, she had this like black canvas like tote bag. I think was from like some like local art store in Cincinnati or something like that. I can like picture it. It had like these like faded green straps, but it was called her magic bag. And every single time she came to babysit us, there would be a different craft and different VHS tapes in it for us to watch. And
truly magic.
Yeah, truly magic. And it was always a surprise to my brother and I of like what it was going to be that night. So, we would pretty much, every time she would come over, we would do some type of craft, which like also bless her dear heart, because there's definitely one time that like old 90s craft where you'd like put those little like plastic beads on like a plastic plate, and they'd like iron it, and they would like melt and like become a pattern.
Oh yeah.
It was a thing. I definitely got one of those little beads stuck in my ear one time, and she had to get it out with tweezers.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So like she's a saint.
Magic.
Magic. But she would bring over, she'd, hit up Blockbuster on her way over, and some of the VHS tapes that she would bring would be Tailspin, DuckTales, and Darkwing Duck.
Also those other shows possibly maybe on our list for future shows to cover, because again, more classics, and spin-offs, or Darkwing Duck is a spin-off of them. So
exactly. I just like remember, and I don't think how VHS worked back then. It wasn't like, here's the entire 3 seasons of Darkwing Duck on one VHS tape. It was like, here's a bunch of random episodes that we decided to put on a VHS tape for you kids. And so I just have like those memories of this show all for me tie back to this really incredible babysitter, who helped raise us essentially, because she came over all the time and like truly until like she went off to college. Like she probably was our babysitter for almost like between like 7 years or something like that.
Wow.
So so super long time. It just has like this very special place in my heart because of that. And how about you? You mentioned your brothers.
Yeah, I did. So this is primarily the oldest brother. So I have 2 older brothers. We're all 3 years apart. So one brother's 3 years older than me. Another brother is 3 years older than him. So we're all like generally close in age.
Wait, can we pause really quick about this really stupid realization I just had?
What?
That
how we're all 3 years apart?
No, I already knew that. But in both of our families, all of the children are both named with the same letters.
Yeah.
I knew that about your family, and I knew that about my family separately, but I never put that together as a joint thing.
Is your brother's middle initial the same as yours?
No.
Oh, okay. Still though.
First names.
I did.
Give me that.
I feel like I had, for sure. That's
Grant
a lot, because
Grace.
people usually don't even go that far. Our parents went even further and gave us all the same middle initial. Labeling stuff was not fun when we were younger. Let me say, we could not put our initials on shit. We had to get everything in different colors. Anyway, I think I have noticed that before. They're like, hey, Grace and Grant also have the same like general initials, but I don't know what his middle name is. So I'm like, I don't know about the middle, but hey, they at least have first and last name. Yeah.
Austin, Aaron, and Alexis.
Yeah, exactly. Bird.
Yep.
All A Bird. So we all go by A Bird, Bird. It's not at all confusing.
It's also
especially when we have a lot of mutual friends and stuff too. Like they'll say Bird and we'll all look.
Called the house before, like when you wouldn't pick up your cell phone in high school, and been like, "Is Bird home?" And they would just like,
like, which one do you want?
Like, which one?
Daryl,
like,
my dad. Do you want
like,
Austin? You want Aaron? Who are you looking for?
Yeah. Anyway,
Austin, why is this high school girl calling you? No, that's not
Austin and I are friends. I can call him if I want.
True. He probably would answer too. Oh my God, Grace is calling. What's up, girl? So shout out to my brothers and to your brother, apparently. Our whole families. We're just celebrating our families today. So when we were younger, I'm the youngest. I'm the only girl. So a lot of like what they wanted to do, that's what went. Like if they want to watch this movie, we're probably going to watch it. Like maybe we would rotate through, and on the third, choice, it would be my choice, but then still like they get the other 2 choices. So it's up to them. But like we weren't a huge Disney family, but I guess whenever Austin had the remote and Disney was on, if Darkwing Duck was on, then he would keep it on. And we did also like, Tailspin and DuckTales and all of that too. We just like all those characters. But I think with Darkwing Duck in particular, so my whole family, we're all like a bit of into the music scene. Like we're all musicians in a different way, or like we really like music. And Darkwing Duck just so happens to have, in my opinion, one of the greatest opening songs.
Yes.
Like
Let's
it is
get
so
dangerous.
Darkwing Duck.
It is.
And it's straight
iconic.
up. I think you would call that genre, or it would fall into what's called New Jack Swing, which is very like this the epitome of 90s like R&B and like funk music kind of. That's just this perfect blending. And it's actually, I think the genre itself came about in like the late 80s, where like you had all these hip hop producers mixing like sounds, like these heavy electronic percussion samples. And like, it's just so smooth and so like jazzy and hip hop at the same time combined. Just beautiful. New Jack Swing is like, I mean, I'm not going to say it's like one of my favorite genres, but a lot of it just has so much nostalgia. Like when I think of it, I think of like TLC and like old school, like Tina Marie music and just stuff from like Motown combining with like modern jazz. And so growing up, like we were really, really into that music because it's like, oh, like what we hear on MTV, you turn that on and then you watch Darkwing Duck and like the title music is like similar to that kind of vibe. So we would always just be like dancing whenever it came on and like the jazziness of it, like our parents would also be like bopping their heads like, wait a minute, this is kind of like a catchy song. Like, let's get dangerous, y'all. Y'all. Those are like the biggest memories for sure. Like growing up watching it. Cause again, I didn't like watch it that much, but I like very much remember that title music. And so Grace, when you suggested doing this show, she and I were talking one day, like, man, what should we do next? And she kind of like, she was spitballing and was like, oh, maybe we'll do Darkwing Duck. And like, I don't think I said it in that moment. I was like, yeah, like, okay, that's good. Like, let's write down some other ideas and we'll come back and we'll like make a decision. But like, we called each other a few days later or like talked and I was like, I'm not going to lie. Ever since you said Darkwing Duck, like that's what I've been committed to. I've already watched a few episodes. I was acting like I was going to like maybe think of other shows to do, but in my heart, because I automatically thought of that music and just how much I love that song growing up. And I was like, yeah, this is perfect. Like it's combining superhero type stuff with crime, with animation, all of our favorite things coming together. So yeah, I think that's why we chose this one. I think that's why we're excited to do it. So
excited. Yep.
And on that note, I think Grace, you're going to be the one to kick us off. You're going first. I'll go next week and we're going to have some fun with it.
And let's get dangerous.
Let's get dangerous.
Like truly. Okay. I'm sorry, before I get into it, because I do talk about the theme song as well, of just like how incredible it is, that I forgot that the theme song was that good until we went to like do our episodes. And I was gobsmacked. Like my jaw was on the ground that like that anyone would care enough about like a children's show to make a banger like that. Like I gotta say, yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. I'm just amazed by it.
Yeah. The 90s was like with the shits with the children's music. Okay. Because remember you had like the Rugrats theme song, which, you know, simple, but very, very catchy.
Yeah.
The All That theme song literally was an original song by TLC.
It was?
Yeah. They fucking called TLC to do a song for All That. Yeah, and they like perform live, like the live performances on All That were like better than what you see on SNL today. Like they had like, it was because they were owned by the same company as MTV. I think they still are. Nickelodeon was. So they were like, yeah, dude, like whoever is performing on MTV, bring them in, put them on All That. Coolio did the song for Kenan and Kel.
What?
Like, yeah, like the music in the 90s for teenagers and kids shows was actually amazing.
This is feeling a lot of recovered memories for me right now.
It's all coming back.
Yeah,
and
all
another
the theme
reason
songs
why,
are coming back.
like these are things I was thinking about while listening to the Darkwing Duck intro music. Like, man, they were really with it in the 90s with music. Like, it's not like that anymore.
No.
I mean, maybe we're just too old for that, but yeah. So again, maybe something else we'll talk about in the future, the awesome music from our favorite childhood cartoons and stuff. But
we want to do a theme song bonus content
for sure,
because it's pretty incredible. I also am really glad that I learned the specific genre that it fell into, because in my notes here, I'm like, this cool R&B/funk ?
Yeah.
Songs. Because I didn't know.
New Jack Swing, I guess, is what you would call it. Yeah. So
great. Excellent. Cool. Well,
kick us off.
Yeah, with that scene further set, or with that scene set, like we did last time for Scooby-Doo, I'm gonna set a scene here in which when did Darkwing Duck come out? as some listeners like myself were not yet born. Others probably were, et cetera, et cetera. But the year is 1991. Dances with Wolves takes home the best picture at the Oscars, while Mariah Carey wins Best New Artist at the Grammys.
Oh, what a year.
Right? Meanwhile, George H.W. Bush is president. So the first George Bush.
Pappy Bush, as I like to call it.
Pappy B.
Pappy Bush. Rest in peace.
Yep. RIP. And the U.S. sees out Operation Desert Storm in the Gulf War, which I am the farthest thing from an authority on. Just know it's complicated. Iraqi invasion, attempted annexation of Kuwait, in which the U.S. and other allies stepped in with military force. And that's all I can say about it without totally fucking it up, because like an ignorant American, I just pulled that from the intro of Wikipedia. Yeah. About the Gulf War.
That's for another podcast.
Yep.
But like not another episode, like a whole other.
Yeah. The podcasts do exist about that.
Yes.
Good. And it was followed by a ceasefire during 1991 as well. The first ever website was created this year as well by Timothy Berners-Lee, often called the creator of the World Wide Web, which no brag, but I did see him get his honorary doctorate at Yale for like creating the internet, because it happened the same year that my brother graduated, who, of also historical note, Grant, my brother, was born in 1991.
Okay, I was like, wait, what about Grant? Okay. the most important thing about the year 1991.
Yeah, hey Grant. The natural mummy of what is known as Europe's oldest known natural human mummy is found in 1991, called Otzi the Iceman, which mainly I mention because based on my 2-second internet search, says that this like fully preserved corpse that was found from like a very long time ago, that I didn't write down the date that they thought it was from, but it's just the oldest human mummy in Europe, was probably murdered because there was an arrowhead embedded in his shoulder. So they think he was a murder victim or victim of war. Wow. And speaking of murder in 1991, Eileen Wuornos, a serial killer who murdered 7 of her clients while working as a sex worker, and Jeffrey Dahmer, one of, the most notorious American serial killers who murdered and dismembered 17 men and boys and preserved many body parts and did lots of fucked up stuff to the body parts, were both captured. And Disney's Beauty and the Beast came out. And on September 6th, 1991, Darkwing Duck premiered with one of the best theme songs ever.
Yes, they had to make people smile somehow. They're like, fuck, man, this year was a little bit darker than we thought. They originally probably had like some super like dark, like action-y theme music. And they're like, back up.
We've been through a lot this year.
Let's liven things up a little bit. Let's get people dancing and not like fearing for the murderer in this episode.
Yep, around every corner. Essentially. Yeah. So Darkwing Duck, as we've mentioned, is a spinoff of kind of like the DuckTales universe. Although some creators I did find in my research were like, no, it's not. It's totally different. But we see a lot of character crossover and like a villain crossover on occasion. But what what's most iconic, I would say, about this show is that the entire show, and I didn't realize this, as a child, but now as an adult watching it, it's both very clear and also that I did research on it, that the entire show is basically a parody and satire of like pulp adventure, super spy and superhero fiction. I feel a lot of pressure in the next statement I'm going to say, because I'm telling it to you, a comic book and superhero expert.
We're just having a conversation. I won't correct you. I'll just come and I'm joking. Go ahead.
If I'm wrong, blame Wikipedia, because I pulled this from here. But the show Darkwing Duck has notes from characters like the Shadow, the Sandman, Doc Savage, Batman, including the city where the show takes place. St. Canard is a parody of Gotham City. The Green Hornet, Flash, Lone Ranger, and Zorro.
Okay. A few of those I definitely know. I mean, watching it, I'm like, I see how those other ones, but I for sure the Shadow and Batman and like Zorro, absolutely, yes.
I was really nervous about that statement.
Wikipedia did not lie to you.
Good, thank
or else
Jesus.
it also lied to me. I may have also come across that on Wikipedia while doing some research and agreed while reading it. Yeah.
All right, excellent. As long as it's confirmed by
mostly
you, then I feel better.
I would say mostly the shadow is probably the biggest inspiration when you look at his appearance, and also like Darkwing Duck's catchphrases, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But
his alter ego, Drake Mallard is Darkwing Duck's alter ego, and Kent Allard is the alter ego of the Shadow. So they, like we've realized in Scooby-Doo, they're just like, how can we take a name and just make it one step removed from the OG thing?
Yeah, exactly. We'll see who remembers.
Yeah, exactly.
The original source material. Yeah, right.
Yep.
Right.
So the show follows our brave superhero Darkwing Duck, aka DW, is how he's referred to a lot. And so we'll probably go back and forth.
Yes.
Yeah, calling him that. So just know if we say DW, we're talking about Darkwing Duck. As he works to protect Saint Canard from sus people and ducks hiding around every corner.
Can I say something real quick too? Saint Canard. You did.
Tell us.
Go ahead if you want to say it.
No, you're the one who knows French. Tell us.
Canard is French for duck. This is literally the direct French translation for the word duck.
Yep.
So for the English word duck. So Saint Duck is where this town full of duck superhero or bird and like animal anthropomorphized civilians and superheroes lives. Yes, Saint Canard, Saint Duck.
Yep, they live in Saint Duck. Yep, from DW works to protect Saint Duck, aka Saint Canard, from petty street criminals to genius supervillains. Again, he does lead a double life. That his day-to-day, he's known as Drake Mallard, but his superhero alias again is DW, Darkwing
Mallard,
Duck.
also another type of duck.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we'll try and point out.
Probably also why they had to use the shadow, because they're like, oh, Allard is so close to Mallard. Yeah. We have to, and then he's a duck. It can be a spinoff of DuckTales, blah, blah, blah.
Like
anyway.
If they missed that opportunity, they shouldn't have a job.
Yeah. It's like they name him like something like Bruce Wayne instead. And it's like,
right. Unless there's a duck that rhymes with Wayne.
Yeah, which I can't think of like right now. Maybe later. Maybe I'll drop it in the comments.
Name more than one type of duck that's not just a mallard right now.
You put me on the spot.
I don't know any. That's why I said it. I know different types of birds, but
there's like one other, but now I'm literally blanking on it. I hate you so much for doing. Anyway, whatever. That's what I'm saying. Of like, mallard is like the primary type of duck. I think 90% of ducks are mallards.
Is that a real stat?
Nope.
Don't take us as duck experts.
We're gonna get like a warning, like a fact checker warning under our video.
People do not know ducks. Don't listen to them.
Don't listen.
Yep. But yeah, so as a kid, it was so fun to watch because everything seemed so pronounced and dramatic. And now as an adult, I realized that it's because it was satire and a parody of Pulp Fictions and superheroes, which just makes it more fun to watch. As an adult.
Which, sorry, okay.
I saw the thinking happening.
Like a light bulb. Ooh, gears are turning. As I've been rewatching this too, I have realized that if there was like one old animated show from the 90s that I would like to see them redo today, like, I think this one actually might be it. I would love to see them like do a revival or whatever, but make it more adult oriented, almost like Archer meets like Batman meets.
Yeah, this would definitely be on Adult Swim type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Or like maybe like throw that shit on Hulu or something. I don't know where they could put it on Disney Plus, but
you know what? I'll make the plug right now. If there's anyone from Adult Swim listening. Yes, we'll come help you write this.
Yes. Or Disney, whomever.
And or if you just want to create a whole other parody show, yes, we will start it.
Yeah, we'll help. Yeah, we
got you.
We've got free time, apparently. We can do that.
We'll
at least get a story together. You got if you can find a screenwriter, we can at least handle the story for y'all, and then we'll pass it off to you for the dialogue. Whichever. Yeah.
Exactly. We'll make it work.
Put that out there. Yeah.
Toss. Give us a raise.
Please. Anyway.
So today, I'm actually not going to tell you the first episode of Darkwing Duck because I watch on Disney Plus and it starts with the third episode of Darkwing Duck. Like, we don't have access to the first and second one on Disney Plus, and I was too lazy to just go find it on the internet somewhere. So I'm going to tell you the first available episode on Disney Plus.
Fair enough.
Which is season 1, episode 3 in reality of Darkwing Duck, entitled Beauty and the Beet.
Oh.
Yes.
When Beauty and the Beast just came out too.
Yep,
nice. Okay.
exactly.
Or at least the movie.
Yep.
Nice.
So,
okay.
While during our Scooby-Doo episodes, we focused a little more, or at least, we focused more on the investigations themselves and like figuring out who done it. Today, just because of how Darkwing Duck is set up, oftentimes we kind of know who the criminal is from the get-go, or it's not always a person in a mask. So today I'm going a little more on the true crimey side of our show. And I'm going to focus more on our criminal and his crimes. We'll obviously talk about how Darkwing Duck and his sidekick Launchpad McQuack, who's from DuckTales, and yes, he is a pilot, and his name is Launchpad.
Who, by the way, they abbreviate to LP sometimes.
Yes,
too.
thank you.
So DW LP, you'll hear us both probably saying that throughout these episodes.
Thank you. Yeah, 100%. So we will, talk about how they were involved in this case and helped serve some type of justice, if we want to call it that. We'll get to it. So there won't be much like guessing here on who done it, because we're going to talk about it almost immediately, who done it. But there will be plenty of editorializing by me and our maybe our strongest trait, wild speculation.
Yes.
So let's begin. So again, this is season 1, episode 3 of Darkwing Duck. So on what most residents of St. Canard found to be another lovely, sunny spring day, there was actually terror being wrought in a lab at an esteemed university as the vicious vines burst through the doors, taking researchers in the lab by surprise. Whoa. Before they could run, the vines wrapped around their legs, immobilizing them. Before they could call for help, these huge, sentient vines continued to grow and, like a python, wrapped around these two men. By the time the authorities arrived and DW was called to the scene, these two, I speculate, and by the way, Darkwing Duck is a lot darker than Scooby-Doo was. Yeah, significantly darker. So just so y'all know, because I speculate that by the time the authorities were there, that these two were straight up dead, because the weapon, the vines,
the death,
fully covered these two victims, and I think suffocated them in a slow itching death. Because when they arrived, they're just head to toe covered, immobile. There's just crime scene tape everywhere. No one's trying to cut them out. I think they're just dead in these vines.
And this is when police arrived, or Darkwing Duck was the first one to the scene?
Cops were there first.
Gotcha. Okay, good. So how a city should actually run, not in Coolsville.
Yeah, there's definitely still vigilante justice in St. Canard, but there's also seems to be at least law enforcement who will call in the vigil. I don't know. Vigilante sometimes. It depends episode to episode, I would say.
Yes. Yeah.
What the law enforcement situation is. But luckily, the witnesses in the labs nearby knew the culprit. But would DW be able to act fast enough to save off future kidnappings and possibly and likely more murder? Let's back up.
Ooh.
So we're going to rewind it a little bit. So all of the trouble that leads up to this moment begins at St. Canard University, which again, St. Duck University.
St. Duck University. University of Ducks.
Yep, exactly. And so in the university, it all starts in Lab 356. So by all account, Lab 356 is an average lab at this well-respected university in the city. And this lab in particular is focused on food modification, or I think what like the writers were hinting at is genetically modified foods, aka GMOs.
GMOs.
Yep, which is interesting because this is 1991, and my brief research showed that the first actual like GMO food didn't hit the shelves until 1994, like in your average grocery store. So yeah, like they were on cutting edge research in Lab 356. Yeah. So with cutting edge research, though, in academia comes pretty fierce competition. And Lab 356 was some of the fiercest. So 4 different researchers work in this, we're just going to call it a GMO lab. Dr. Gary and Dr. Larson, which is very funny because Gary Larson is the cartoonist behind Far Side comics, which I like grew up reading. Like they're all over the house. Yes. Yeah. So every time I say it, I just like giggle to myself. Yeah.
That was intentional.
1,000%.
No way it couldn't have been. Yeah.
Yep. And then Dr. Rhododendron, which is a plant. So get ready for a theme here.
Here we go.
We're just going to call her Dr. Dendron.
Okay.
And then one, Dr. Reginald Bushroot. So again, a theme going on.
Yes.
So Dr. Gary and Dr. Larson seem to be kind of like jocks gone nerds, as they're like these huge, like hulking figures, like, I don't know, like linebacker type of bodies. Yeah. They're clearly like the head researchers in the lab who are pulling in the most funding. And at St. Canard's, it becomes very clear that whoever brings in the most dollars to the university is by far the most esteemed.
Always follow the money.
Yep, exactly. And their research, they're kind of like research partners. Their GMO research is making food bigger, but with no further nutritional value. In fact, even less nutritional value. So kind of like a quantity over quality, basically. Yeah. And they're getting the money for it because, companies are like, great. Yeah. Please modify
cut
this.
Costs will also,
people will think they're eating better because it's like larger quantities, like they're getting more out of it. But in reality, it's becoming more and more unhealthy.
Yeah.
Dr. Dendron is the only woman in the lab and is absolutely seen by the males as clearly just a sex object. We don't even know what her research is about. We never hear about it.
No one cares.
Yeah, she's just like messing with test tubes. They don't bother to give her like an actual topic of research. That's a thing.
I'm not okay. Yeah.
Which I will say, I guess is maybe reflective of the pulp fictions and that type of stuff. As I'm lot getting of the women.
A very God, I can't believe I just blanked on Poison Ivy's real name.
Oh,
and I'm not gonna stop the episode for that, but it makes you think of her. It's kind of like in the background doing random scientific experiments on plants and shit.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe she will be Poison Ivy.
Yeah. Who knows? But definitely a lot of, I will say, at least in the episodes I've watched so far, the female characters sometimes in Darkwing Duck get a little bit of the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, I would say.
Anyway.
Yeah. So keep that in mind. I'm sure we'll talk about it every episode to some variety. Yes. And finally we have Dr. Bushroot, and he is like the dweeb amongst dweebs, and our main focus today.
Okay.
So from the get-go, Dr. Bushroot is painted as honestly like an absolute loser. Like none of his clothes fit him quite right, from like an oversized lab coat to this like lanky tie laying on his gut. He looks like very strung out with like wrinkles and creases around his like around his eyes. He's like extremely, and ironically, like very like duck-footed, which like not all characters actually are duck-footed in this show, even though they're all ducks, but like he super is.
Clearly, yeah.
Yeah. He only has like a few like misplaced like wisps of hair left on an otherwise completely bald head.
He's burnt out on this research, man. This cutting edge GMO research is getting to him.
It's a lot of pressure, and he walks around with like slumped shoulders. And if we stopped here at like his clearly stressed out appearance, like I would understand why he looks so disheveled, and I would have some sympathy for him, because in reality, working in this lab for him is like a total hellscape, because lab 356 is like beyond a toxic work environment. But it's important to keep in mind that Bushroot here does eventually turn to a path of violence as a solution. So despite circumstances, I want us to keep that in mind as I eventually go into
he got
this.
bullied to the dark side.
Yep. So we'll get into it here in a second. But a brief note of wild speculation about what will eventually push this dweeby PhD to a path of violence. I theorize that he always had a violent tendency deep within him, one that he simply ignored and repressed, which we all know repressing anything is a bad idea, and it didn't help his mental state and his obvious kind of depression and anxiety going on. And I think he always had this brewing somewhere in him, and there was finally a straw that broke the camel's back that we'll get into kind of like what was building. And when it finally happened, he fully snapped into some type of like break with reality, or like this delusional, like berserker mode. So yeah, let's get into what the path of building up to his, again, this break with reality is. So day in and day out in this lab, I mentioned toxic work environment. Bushroot is bullied and straight up harassed by Gary and Larson. They call him names all day. They demean his work, saying things like, you can't do real research, you just play with plants all day. But they like straight up physically harass him too. Like they sabotage his experiments. They blatantly like destroy them in front of him. Like, for example, Bushroot has a bunch of like potatoes hooked up to plants for his research, and Gary or Larson, I don't remember who was who, like takes the potatoes and like stomp on them while like verbally abusing him.
Which also like waste of university funds or like money. Like you can't just like waste grant money like that. Like anyway, whatever.
But they're rolling in the dough. So to them, what's another potato apparently?
So they're the big ones there. The ones who get all the gotcha.
Big jock types.
Head honchos.
Getting all the cash in. And while when Dr. Dendron is in the lab, they try to play down the harassment, but like certainly continue the like verbal viciousness in like some type of weird cringy attempt to like impress her type of thing. It's like gross.
We're not super mean, we're just a little mean. Does that turn you on?
Right? Are you into it? Like, look, we all think this guy's a loser, right? Do we seem tough now? So now Bushroot's GMO research is actually pretty interesting. It's around how humans consume food rather than around the food that we consume. So he's focused on the consumer, not the product, basically.
Okay, that's admirable.
Yeah, he theorizes that there's a way to essentially modify how we receive nutrients and all the nutrients that we need. So specifically, he wants to create a way by studying plants for humans to photosynthesize so that we can gain nutrients from pure sunlight rather than products, which is pretty interesting. So he's like anti-consumerism. Basically,
true
in a way,
but we have different cellular structure than plants, so it's but
that's what he's trying to research is how to change our cellular
how to turn
structure.
Humans into plants.
Truly, like he's trying to figure out like, can we change like our cellular structure and how we like get nutrients to resemble that of plants, because this to him is a path to a better world. One in which we don't depend on product and that type of stuff.
Little anarchist. Look at you. Or him.
Truly.
Bushroot. Go for it.
Again, having this like path towards maybe violence in a different path, always in him somewhere. And despite this bullying that he faces, and that, Dr. Dendron does have like words of sympathy for him a lot of the time, but he sees them as mocking. Like he can't fathom that she would actually be being nice to him. He sees it as more bullying. But despite all this, he continues on this path, what he sees as like this mission to improve the world. So as I mentioned, this lab, like a lot of the world, is a place where money talks. So even in their bullying, Gary and Larson on occasion actually do emphasize to Bushroot that there's no money in his research, in this like human photosynthesis research. And like, they're probably right. Like, even in our universe and probably theirs, most corporations are probably like greedy leaning. And why would they want to give you a solution in which you would never need their products again? You would just need the sun. So like, you would never have to go to the grocery store again. So yeah, it's correct.
Not
that
good for their
Bushroot,
shareholders.
yeah, exactly. So Bushroot is like not getting a lot of research funding. Day in and day out, Bushroot continues this painstaking research while the chorus of naysayers echoes throughout the lab. And then at what I've deemed as the beginning of the end for Bushroot, the dean of their college, Dean Tightbill, has to make severe budget cuts. Tightbill making budget cuts. Yep, exactly.
Nice.
So to no surprise, Gary and Larson are like total suck-ups to the dean, and they actually sabotage Bushroot's latest experiment, so it blows up in the dean's face. Yep, and the dean already had it out for Bushroot, just like, according to Bushroot, everybody in the world does. You know, he thinks he's this
You're backing
ranger.
this man into a corner.
It's
so
gonna
get dangerous
because his research is not leading anywhere to the university. It's not bringing any funds, and they have to make budget cuts. The dean fires Bushroot on the spot, right in front of his colleagues, including Dr. Dendron. Not good HR. I don't think there was any HR at this university.
Apparently not.
To be honest.
Clearly, or they're just totally not doing any of their duties because there's massive harassment going on.
Like straight up abuse.
Rampant harassment abuse. Yeah.
Yep. And so like anyone in this situation, you know, there's definitely a deep sense of desperation now. I mean, like, work was definitely and very clearly Bushroot's entire life. Like, this was his mission. It's what kept him going through all of the abuse endured at work, and who knows where else in his life. But we're actually not quite at the point of this full break. We're inching closer to it.
Okay.
And as we can see in his next actions, which I again deem and speculate are all actions of a deeply desperate man, he's still willing to make one last attempt to salvage himself and kind of cling on to his sanity. So for now, I'll say we can have some sympathy for Bushroot. I'll let you know when that changes, because so far, like, he is trying to make the world a better place. He's putting up with harassment all day. He was just fired after his life's work was like called useless. So we can feel bad for him for a little bit longer. But again, path of violence is in his future instead of a path of like harassment lawsuits against the school instead of violence.
Yeah,
like, he had other choices.
Absolutely.
That he could have made.
But it's nice. They're building the story for like a complex villain.
Yep.
Like, oh man, do I agree with him? Like, I'm not supposed to side with the villain or feel bad for him, but look at how hard he's had it, how horrible his life is. We'll see. Maybe.
For now, we can
if the ends justify the means.
Yeah, ambiguous and gray area for now. And I do think that Bushroot kind of knows that this is his last chance before he snaps, like, for good. I kind of see him as like, he's in the mindset of like a desperate animal locked in his own like internal cage. And he's going to like take some extreme measures to try and save himself before, you know, he's got to, you know, gnaw off his own arm to get out of the cage, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, that's good. He's got a bit of a moral compass, maybe.
Yeah, for now.
Okay.
So Bushroot has his own lab at his house, which, by the way, I have to say is like fucking gorgeous home and my dream home. He basically lives in like enormous greenhouse that like is large enough that it houses a full jungle. There's like palm trees in there. Like it is huge and is like up on a hillside. It's an A-frame. I love a good A-frame. I love houseplants. I love natural light. Like, I would live in this home. Anyways, the home was not enough to save this man from his eventual snap with reality.
Nothing.
Not even a good sunlight and beautiful houseplants could save him. So anyways, Bushroot, his lab in this beautiful home is this like Frankenstein and his monster setup. And we see him in his home again in his like desperate attempt. He's basically thinking to himself, I will prove that my research was worthwhile by proving that I can indeed alter our cellular structure. Like if I just prove it, I'll get my job back. I'll get respect from my colleagues, can publish papers on it, go to conferences, everything will be better. So
I wish life was that black and white.
He thinks it might be.
Yeah.
So we see him and he's like shaking at this point. Like, again, he's on the brink of a snap. He's hooking himself up. There's two like slabs, again, Frankenstein style. On one is just a flower in a pot, and he's hooking up like IV tubes to it and himself. It's like a little daisy or something like that.
Cute.
Yeah, it's like pretty precious. And he's like test tubes running from it and all this kind of stuff. And so then he lays on the other slab, hooks himself up, pulls a switch. They rise through the skylight in this house. Again, I guess it becomes a convertible house. There's a storm going on. Again, classic Frankenstein moment.
Frankenstein-y. Mm-hmm.
With a strike of lightning from above, the transform is initiated because I guess somehow electricity from lightning was key. I don't know. Whatever. Either
Thanks,
way.
Ben Franklin.
Yeah, exactly. That's my like confusion. I'm like, you guys have electricity. Can you just like electroshock yourself into this? But
or
it's
just
not
get
as
the
dramatic.
what do you call it? The heart,
the defibrillator stuff.
Thank you.
Clear.
Yeah, just like put that on the plant.
Yeah, you'd think, but
I guess he had no friends to do it for him, so he had to rely on his only friend, Mother Nature. That's so sad. Actually, I feel really bad for Bushroot. I'm not gonna lie.
Again,
getting a little sad for him.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Like, yeah, we are building up a pretty, it's got a sad story to start here.
Yeah.
But it turns out we see that it was actually a success. Like, his research was legitimate. So he steps back into the sun. You know, at first he thought it was a failure because he didn't feel any different, but he steps into the sun. But you know, failure versus success. There's a lot of definitions that people could put to it.
A lot of gray area.
Yeah. So maybe success in the fact that, like, yes, he can start photosynthesizing, but maybe also failure because we slowly see his skin, his feathers start to turn green. And then he starts to sprout leaves and weeds. And then his head just becomes like a flower bud. And basically his body becomes a stalk and he turns into this like strange flower duck man.
It worked too well. Stop. He's like, wait, no, stop.
Too much.
Stop working.
Too much. Too many plant cells.
Photosynthesizing.
Yeah, that like I don't know enough about like cellular biology beyond like the mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell.
Woo, thank you. High school education.
Woo!
Don't know how to fucking do my taxes, but I sure do know that.
Do I know anything beyond that? Nope.
No.
But yeah, so like literally his body is like the stalk of like a flower and like his arms are like and like legs are like the leaves, and yeah, his head is just like a closed flower bud with like his eyes and like bill still and like a little like weed sprouting out the top. So
just like a half duck, half flower.
I'm
assuming he's a duck. Yeah, he's a duck, right?
Yeah. Sorry, he's a duck. I would say like 80% flower, like 20% duck.
Like they just had to leave like the bill and like his feet, so you know, like that he was a duck and now he's a flower.
He's a flower duck man.
Okay, gotcha. Flower duck man. Villain coming to you in Saint Canard.
Yeah, exactly. And so you know, finally to him, like a bright spot in his life. You know, this is validation that all of his troubles and trials have been worth it. And even more, he discovers that like this deep, whatever cellular change in his mitochondria and blah, 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 whatever cells things had to change.
Powerhouse of the whatever.
Yeah, the cell. I guess plants maybe
powerhouse of the soul.
Of the duck man.
The mitochondria is the eyes of the powerhouse. The window to the powerhouse. I don't know how it works.
We are science here.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyway. Precisely. So because of this change, he also discovers, so like, again, maybe a success, that this fish can telepathically communicate and command plants around him because he's like part plant now, but a superior plant.
So he's the one that became poison ivy. Oh my God. Sorry. Pamela Ivy. I just remembered her name. Her name's Pamela Ivy. Sorry. It just hit me. Poison
Ivy. Same initials and same last name.
I think Ivy is her last name, Pamela something. Anyway, so he became Pamela. Poison Ivy. Wow,
Except,
that's a plot twist.
Not like a cool, sleek,
sexy, red bombshell.
Nope, like giant bud of a head and a very lanky, spindly stalk. Like he's still a dweeb. Basically. So he runs back to St. Canard University, ready to show the lab his incredible breakthrough, to show Dendron who he's realizing he's madly in love with, and he wants to prove that he's an esteemed scientist, to ask the dean for his job back, which they could not deny now. So
this is gonna go well.
Yep, he bursts back into the lab again, maybe already a little delusional about his life. So he bursts back into the lab as this duck flower man, and he's immediately met with laughter and jeers from Gary and Larson, who only increase their insults to him. And Dr. Dendron is actually shocked by this outburst of him bursting into the lab. She drops whatever experiment she's working on, again, just a bunch of general test tube situations, she's pouring them one into the other, but she just drops it. She is at a loss for words. And Bushroot, of course, sees this all as another slight against him, and he flees the lab in shame. And this, dear listeners and viewers, is when he finally snaps. Shame is an incredibly powerful emotion, and a very deep-rooted emotion in a lot of humans, and was the exact one that he needed to just, with reality and what he thought it could be. So,
which also, maybe if he had stuck around and talked to her a little bit, maybe obviously it's shocking to see a 80% flower, 20% duck walk into your research lab, but once he explains the situation, maybe she would be more open and talk to him about it, rather than him just being oh fuck, I messed up, I gotta run and now kill some people. I don't know what he does next, we'll see.
That's why, again, while we can have sympathy for the first part of his story, keeping in mind that there were always other alternatives he could have taken, such as pausing to be yo, actually, I'm going to win a fucking Nobel Peace Prize, screw y'all type of thing. There were other paths.
Also, you said he can control plants now. Dude, the military industrial complex would be all over that shit. If they could control plants, deploy this man to whatever country.
Exactly. Or let's replicate it, and our entire army will become this.
Exactly.
There were so many paths in which he was still a good scientist that he just chose not to take. And speaking of both that full control and power over plants all around him, and I think proving that he didn't even think of those other options, we see as he's leaving the lab, tight zoom in on Flower Bud face, him saying, what a shame it would be if anyone at the lab had a little accident. So that's where we snap back to where we started our tale today, which I posit is a double homicide. It's Gary and Larson who are working late one night in the lab on their GMO research. That's when those vines burst in, again, wrap themselves around Gary and Larson, as Bushroot is on the other side of the wall, controlling the vines entirely. He can tell them what to do. And again, completely telepathically, he is ordering the vines to do this. And even as they're yelling for help, he could have just stopped at restraining them.
He could have just spooked them a little bit.
Right, exactly. And been see what happens. Boo, I can control plants.
Don't mess
now.
with me again. Yeah.
Exactly. Which again is still, violence doesn't need violence.
No, don't even do that. Yeah. But that's also not murder. It's, assault and stuff, but it's not murder.
Yep. And like I mentioned earlier, I think that Bushroot has entered some type of delusional berserker mode, which also for reference, essentially I'm not using the term berserker mode properly in like actual like criminal psychology terms, which is essentially usually referred to when like usually a serial killer just like cannot stop. It's usually actually when they get caught because they get sloppy. All of a sudden, like whatever force is or like internal drive to kill is just like the floodgates have opened and they are just like murder, like can't stop, won't stop type of
out
mode.
Of control.
Yep. And so this is the beginning of that essentially for Bushroot here, although there was no ramp up period. So again, I'm not using it like technically correct, but I'm not a criminal psychologist. So I'm not going to lose any license over this because I don't have one.
Exactly.
To begin with.
Boom. No one's going to discredit you because you were never trying to get credit in the first place.
Exactly. Come at me. Yeah. Anyways, so like I mentioned, he continues to send the vines in until the two are entirely covered. They slowly are suffocated. Because again, the next thing that we see is the crime scene left behind and the two forms of the researchers unmoving, completely covered in plants. And honestly, we never see them again.
So pretty safe to assume. If I mean, at a minimum, they were like put in like permanent care in the hospital.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Were they like mummy wrapped up in these things almost, or just like there were vines just covering everything and they were buried under them?
I would say it's more of the mummy mode. They're like in the pose of like trying to run away, but like completely, like mummy wrapped up
gotcha
type of thing, which is why I think it's like a full suffocation.
Exactly. Like, it's like, because if they were just under like a pile of vines and maybe like they could breathe and move. Nope. Okay. Yep. They
way
were
darker.
Like their ribs were broken probably and like lungs. Okay.
Yeah. Not good.
Dark.
Not good.
Wow. Disney taking it there. Okay. Right out of the gate.
And so apparently the cops and the feds were called in, but were for some reason stumped. And I guess it's because they just like weren't talking to witnesses. So
we got this. We don't need your testimony.
Right. Exactly. Like, but luckily, I guess that's when DW and LP Launchpad are called in. They get called in for when normal channels of justice can't find an answer. And luckily they did that. They called in DW and Launchpad because either Dr. Dendron wasn't willing to talk to, traditional law enforcement. She's like, fuck the police and the FBI, or they didn't go talk to her. Unsure.
NWA was big back then. She probably listened to them.
Yeah. Dr. Dendron definitely would be listening to them. So she tells DW and Bushroot that tells DW that she knows it was Bushroot. She witnessed him as the flower duck man, but she's really trying to make the case for him and saying that he's not actually bad. He just got mixed up in something that he's out of control on. Who had never hurt a fly. He didn't mean to do this.
He's going through some things.
Yeah. And I call this deep denial, which I think is the technical term for it, even as not a psychologist.
That many deeps, two deeps, deep, not just denial, not just deep. Yeah.
A double deep denial. But DW knows that he doesn't have time to like hear her just be like, please, no, don't think that he's a criminal, because there's two already probably dead ducks on their hands. And actually, DW, full credit, he puts together like a criminal profile of Bushroot, like on the spot, not in blatant terms, but there's a lot of like serial killer profiling that exists of like a power or like a control killer. There's like missionary killers, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that he falls into like that power killer section because he's seeking control over his abusers and riding this high of revenge. And so with that type of profile being built, DW is like, well, who else does he want revenge against? Probably the dean. So it's a damn good profile built because DW and Launchpad sprint to the dean's office and are trying to lock it up and like protect him, right as an enormous tree bursts through the side of the wall.
Oh my God, like an Innsmoot. I should, you're the one who should be referencing that.
Yes, 100% like an int. Yes, just like, boom, boom. Yep. Yeah, and like the dean being very small is like a little hobbit because he just picks up the dean from his desk. And again, Bushroot is like off in the forest behind, ordering the street to do all of that. So I would like to pause for the for just some things that I won't mention further, but deserve their own spotlight. Yeah, which is some moments of satire of in like the ensuing chase scenes to save the dean, because on the like really hamming up the like superhero side of things, they give really funny like weapons. So he has like DW has like buzz saw cufflinks that he uses to like chop through wood. He has like his enormous, like, it reminds me of like the Marvin the Martian like sized gun that he uses. And he also has like machetes at some point, which is just, I guess, helpful.
Intense.
Yeah. And so
for like cutting through
jungle.
Yeah. Cleaving through. Exactly. Boom.
Yep. And so I also want to acknowledge all of like the gorgeous puns used from here on out by DW, since this is like a plant themed episode.
Yeah.
He says things like, this is an Ivy League school. The sprig is up. Let's get back to his roots.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Turn over a new leaf.
Those were all really good, but the Ivy League one just right out the gate oh shit, man.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Those are all great though.
Of Darkwing Duck are fire.
Like they are. They really are. Again, why I would love to see this like in a more grown-up fashion be like brought back as like an adult animated show.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be so funny.
So yeah, all of that just needed its own moment here. So anyways, the dean, is like begging for his life. DW and Launchpad are able to save him. He runs free, avoiding a kidnapping, and again, probably a murder. Hopefully he does need some protective services or attempted. Some shit.
Yeah,
exactly. So as it happens, Bushroot's revenge plan only thickens. We see him muttering about DW and Launchpad. He's kind of like making this mental list of who's wronged him, because he says, you're like all of the others, always ruining things for me. Which again seems to be his entire motivation, that everyone's been against him, that everyone owes him the world, as nothing is his fault, and so he's fighting to gain back like this control of his life, which also like classic trait of like a narcissist, thinking they're always in the right and everyone else has done them wrong, when again he could have just chosen some different paths in life. Like he had
options.
Exactly. You always have options. So Dr. Dendron, though, still believes in him, and she begs DW to let her just talk some sense into him. Again, classic double denial. But during all of this like conversation between Dendron and DW, Bushroot overhears it and interprets her pleas, again, like a narcissist, everything's truly about him. I just sigh, because he thinks her just talking nicely about him means that she's madly in love with him.
Oh God.
Suddenly her words aren't condescending, but expressions of desire and love. And in reality, they're just part of this delusional world that he's like running in.
Oh God. Well, he's about to get even more. Well, maybe not. Maybe she does. Who knows? I mean, she's really sticking her neck out there for this guy. So
for this murderer.
For this murderer. So she's either just like a very, very naive person, or maybe there's something there, but I don't think it's safe for him to immediately jump to that conclusion.
It's definitely it's definitely a leap, we'll call it. A lot of again, this world of delusion he lives in. But DW, he is like seeing all of the red flags, and from this conversation DW starts putting together like, oh shit, I bet Bushroot is in love with this bombshell in the lab. And says, the only thing more dangerous than a plant duck is a plant duck in love. Which I just love. That they also just call him the plant duck.
Plant duck.
Flower duck, plant duck.
Yes. And I like how they put plant first, because they're like, no, he's like mostly plant now, and just like a splash of duck.
Like a 80,
not a duck plant, but exactly. So you were spot on with that breakdown that you gave.
And again, DW is completely correct in the psychological profile of this criminal, because Bushroot burst into the lab where they're doing the witness statement and interview with Dendron in a full tuxedo, starts expressing his
still
undying...
as a plant
starts expressing his
still
undying...
as a plant though.
Yeah, but it's just like the top half of the tuxedo. There's no pants, and just just top half.
He's a duck. He doesn't need pants.
He's a plant duck.
That's a plant duck. Sorry,
flower duck. And starts expressing his undying love to Dr. Dendron, who immediately is like, "Whoa, bro, what? That's not what I meant."
Oh no.
Yeah, and so
more
DW
shame.
again, like full credit. It's like, I fucking called it. Jumps in between them, like full gun pulled, being like, "You're gonna try and kidnap this girl. I told everyone," or this woman. "I fucking told everyone." But the plants come in. They overpower DW on Launchpad. Bushroot kidnaps Dr. Dendron, who is like fully like yelling in protest and trying
damsel
to
in
like
distress mode.
Yeah, and is like trying to get out of there. But despite her protest, I think that's what also leans into more that like he's fully delusional and unhinged, because this unhinged decision making continues, because he gets Dr. Dendron back to his amazing greenhouse, which, like, okay, would that be enough? He just kidnapped her. Great, maybe they'll talk about it. No.
Maybe she won't press charges. You can talk it through.
Yeah, maybe she can get out of it somehow. Play the like, "No, I'm totally in love with you, Car. Let me get back to my house to get my suitcase to move in with you," and then run.
Yeah.
But no, he does not give her that chance, because he plans to make her his bride. But it's not good enough for him now that she would just be a normal bride. She also needs to be a plant
bride.
Plant bride.
Turning into like, well, kind of Little Shop of Horrors type thing.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like, actually, I did think of Little Shop of Horrors a couple times, because there's definitely some like, Venus flytraps here and there.
I figure, yeah.
We have like that.
I feel like anytime a fictional thing, whether it's like a cartoon or like live action, has like killer plants, there's always going to be a Venus flytrap. Yep. Yeah. And apparently ants.
Yeah, and
they're like walking trees.
Yep, exactly. So Dr. Dendron is straight up like still trying to protest and fight against him, but he's strapping her down to like the Frankenstein table, like straight up hooking her up to another little happy flower pot, who's just innocent and doesn't know what's happening here. Yeah, it's just like
oh yeah. Sorry. I just pictured that, like a scared, terrified, like little plant on like this operating table. No. A storm is brewing in overhead.
Yeah, and like IVs are hooked up between them, like this mad scientist. So yeah, she's like begging for her life, and he's just like not having it. And yeah, she's like starting to get raised up to the storm happening above. But luckily, DW and Launchpad, they knew exactly where he was going to take her. And so they make it to the house. And again, furthering my case that Bushroot, again, is maybe like a narcissist, by thinking everyone's always against him. He's like exclaiming, like, "Someone's always standing between me and what I want." Which again, bro, you had other choices to get what you wanted.
Exactly.
That.
And also that's exposing obviously some of his like built up trauma, like maybe over his entire life, the course of his entire life. Like even as a kid, he's probably like having these repressed memories of like that one time his mother wouldn't let him get that like new science kit that he wanted as a kid or something, like, and then I didn't get that scholarship, so I had to like rake my way through school, whatever.
And it was this dude clearly like against some repressed him, trauma. That like his mom was working 3 jobs and couldn't afford the science kit.
Right. Like, dude, look outside of your Anyway, we'll talk more about him at the end, I'm sure. At least I have some thoughts, but I want to, go ahead.
100%. So while fighting off the many plants that Bushroot sends his way, DW is able to reverse the machine that was raising Dr. Dendron up to the sky. And with no backup on the way and possibly no outright authority there to arrest Bushroot, DW decides on extreme measures that will let the viewers and the listeners make their own decision on, because if you recall my questioning of justice in this scenario, we should talk about this as well. I've got a couple lines left here, because DW utters his iconic catchphrase, which is like 2 octaves lower than his usual voice. And in the theme song at the start, you obviously heard us saying this, but let's get dangerous. And he finds like a ride on like lawnmower that he chases bushroot with and literally mows down bushroot.
Oh,
like,
shit.
In his own home. Unless you think that like DW is a murderer too, we do see that bushroot, while like torn to shreds, we still see him like at the end, like we see like his bill on like a little like cabbage. So like he survived still and is like making faces, perhaps to be seen again one day, but we don't see any arrests. We don't see anything else. We just see that DW literally mowed him down in his own home, and then like left, I guess.
So it's very fair to assume that DW thinks he killed him.
Mm-hmm. I would say so.
So he is like full-blown vigilante.
Yep.
Mystery Inc. always stops one step short. They're like, we'll capture you. We might hurt you a little bit while we're capturing you, but we're going to call the cops. We're not going to take it further than that. DW is straight up like, oh no, I'm going to kill these fuckers. Like they're criminals.
Well, also,
we need to rid the streets of this crime.
I mean, like, do we, look at potentially that, all of the plants had become sentient beings and like he was macheteing them left and right.
So he killed a lot of things, a lot of people.
Exactly. So I'm sure there's a debate there that the whoever his high-powered lawyers are would argue of like they weren't real sentient beings type of thing. Because they were being controlled, not thinking for themselves maybe. But
you can't murder a plant.
Well, that would be decide.
They'll say it was property damage, not murder.
Exactly. So
wow.
So that's our first Darkwing Duck episode. Again, a lot darker.
Wow.
But
great job.
The dark side of I like that the crime aspect. So
yeah. Wonderful job. Great Thanks. Profile there. And breaking down bushroot.
It's fucking crazy.
This I like Darkwing Duck because it reminds me so much of comics and of comic book movies. Like they so often try to tie in complex villains, or at least in my opinion, what makes like comic books great. The good ones and the good comic book movies have complex villains, not just like this big bad meanie who you're like, oh, obviously I want the superheroes to win and get him out of there. It's like, no, you tell a backstory, build up to show like, hey, this guy, he had options, he had choices. And for some reason, through all the adversity, he took the road very less traveled. He went off the deep end versus like becoming a superhero and then, choosing to use his powers for good. And then because it makes the audience like question as they're watching him, like, wow, what would I do? Like, would I also become the villain or would I become the hero?
Right. Or like, do you see his actions as justified?
Exactly.
Like,
do the ends justify the means?
But like, like, oh, of course he was pushed to that and broke. Or I'm on the camp of like, he had other options. He didn't have to get that far. If you're having some stresses, talk to someone. Like,
right. And but then, you see Bushroot, did he have anyone to talk to?
Right.
So it also makes you think of these like larger societal issues. Like, come on, we all need to be like nicer and like, rather than just like shitting on everyone, AKA Gary and Larson. Lol. Like, let's have some compassion. Like, don't bully people to like driving them insane or, driving them into like becoming Dr. Evil.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this dude, he had a lot of potential. Bushroot had a lot of potential to be a hero, an American hero, a Saint Canardian hero.
Saint Duckian
hero.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, he became a male poison ivy and Yeah.
Like the super lame
Also,
one. Yeah.
now that I think it's Pamela Isley, not Ivy.
That makes me feel better that it's not
yeah.
just.
Yeah.
She was like,
I know.
I'll just change the first name.
Clearly, I can't stop thinking about this. I think partially because I'm ashamed that I can't remember it, and partially because it's just he reminds me that these are literally her powers. She can control plants, and like she looks kind of like a plant. She turns green, so I'm pretty sure that's probably where they got the idea for Bushroot from. Wow, what an episode! Darkwing Duck.
Yep, Darkwing Duck. These episodes will be a little dark right now. I already have my next one lined up that gets into some dark shit as well. But hopefully that's what y'all are into
as well. Yeah, we're gonna get
stick with
some of the shows we talk about will be more lighthearted, like Scooby and other cartoons we've mentioned in the past that we'll probably cover in the future. Some of them are gonna get darker though, you guys. I think as we're rewatching some of these shows as adults that we grew up on, we're like, holy shit, double, triple entendres going on here. A lot of ways, like a lot of like underhanded like sexual jokes and just adult humor,
a lot of yikes,
mature humor, and like criminal activity depicted that we did not really pick up on when we were younger.
Yep, exactly.
So another great reason why we're doing this show, because this is chock full of all of that stuff.
Exactly. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. To help spread the word about this,
who should they tell?
This show, who should they tell, Alexis?
Oh gosh, this week, go and if you can treat yourself, go maybe get a haircut or have your stylist wash your hair. Shoot, have we done this one before?
I think we might have.
Damn it, I was gonna say tell your stylist, but now that that sounds like something we've said before. Uh-oh. Okay, well, so sometimes you have to wait a while before your stylist can get to you. Run across the street to the corner store and like grab a snack to hold you over. Right. And I know we've done grocery stores before too, but whatever. Tell different people at the grocery store. Exactly. Tell the person at the corner store, whether it's the person working or just someone else there buying someone. Try not to be annoying though. I'd probably be annoying, but whatever. Just say, hey, I'm here waiting for my hair appointment. Go listen to Saturday Morning Mysteries while I buy this Reese cup to hold me over. Yep.
And then when you cross back to the street to your your appointment, you probably got like a couple more minutes while like your stylist gets the drape on you and like you get in your seat. They need to go take a quick bathroom break. Take your phone and see if you can hook up to the salon's Bluetooth and just put on Saturday Morning Mysteries. So
no one knows like where it's coming from.
So everyone has to listen to it.
They like while you make everyone pull their phones out. Like, where is that? Wait a minute. No, this is actually good. Keep it on. Keep it on.
Exactly. So like, hey, hair salon, what up? This one goes out to you. So they get that shout out. And we'll see you guys next week. See y'all next week.
We'll be back. See you.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Saturday Morning Mysteries.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share, rate, review, leave us a like, and drop a comment. We post episodes every Saturday and bonus tune tangents whenever we feel like it. So please subscribe so you don't miss the shenanigans.
And if you want to follow us on YouTube, click the bell under the YouTube subscribe button to receive notifications when new videos are posted.
And if you want to subscribe to the podcast, we have no idea what you're listening to us on. So just hit the big subscribe button on whatever app you're using. We believe in you.
Give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram at SatmornMist, all the abreves. And let us know if you have any episode or show requests by emailing SaturdayMorningMysteries@gmail.com.
Thanks to Jenna Kendall for the logo design and to Ava Sakiki for the music used during this week's episode.
See y'all groovy kids next week on Saturday Morning Mysteries.